Say and friends. Today, I'm interviewing Darlene Williamson, President of National Aphasia Association. She is a speech-language pathology with over 40 years. She's working in rehab for stroke and brain injury survivor. She also founded Stroke Combat Center in Virginia and Maryland. Thank you for watching. Don't forget, subscribe, and see you later.
My name is Darlene Williamson. I'm a speech-language pathologist, not only an interest in aphasia, but a passion for people with aphasia that I have had for many, many years. That has been the focus of my professional work for most of my career. Several different settings, hospital, university, nonprofit, clinic, and now with the National Aphasia Association. No, ask me that question a lot. Get interested in it. No, there is no history of stroke or aphasia in my family. I, like the rest of the world, had never heard of aphasia. I was during my education and I learned about it, but had never been exposed to it prior to that. I spent most of my career in hospital settings. Always felt the frustration of having to let people go. They were finished. I knew there was progress to be made, but insurance wasn't going to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And actually, I left the hospital setting because of that frustration. And I took a position at George Washington University where I could, first of all, share my passion with students, but secondly, we had the ability in the clinic to try different kinds of things and collect data to see if it worked. Mm-hmm. And we found that at some point in the recovery curve, working in a group is more beneficial than one-on-one therapy. Very good news.
Yeah.
I left the academic setting full-time and I opened a private practice. Mm. And people called and, can you help my mother, my sister? Yes, I can. But it costs money to run a private practice and people don't have that kind of money. Mm. So I made a decision to put together what I knew was happening with healthcare and in the hospitals, the fact that I knew that groups worked for people with aphasia. Mm. Most importantly, the idea that people cannot pay over the long haul. We need to do something that's affordable for people. It all up together into an idea for a center where people could come as long as they wanted. We would have all kinds of groups, and if they couldn't pay, we'd find a way to make it happen even without them paying. Mm-hmm. And so in 2005, we opened our doors. I went very strong until 2020, so for 15 years, and then I retired. But I did not realize, and I think it's important to say, is that all of the other wonderful things that happen at a center are just as important as the therapy groups, the friendships that are made, all of the fun we have, all the laughter, all the crazy things that happen that people share. and the community that gets built, along with the community of family and friends of people with aphasia. When I had this vision, I did not see that happening. And it turned out to be the very best part of the center. I started with this idea, but make no mistake, the best speech therapists anywhere gathered together around me to make all of this happen. So there's an amazing team. Every one of the speech therapists at the center understands what a center can mean to people, and they all love what they do and love interacting, and that's what makes it work. So when I was at George Washington University, oh gosh, that was in the 90s. I was assigned by my department chair to be a representative to the National Aphasia Association. I became a representative and became acquainted with the National Aphasia Association and what they do and what they were doing then. Maintained an interest with them. I joined the board. I felt like I had the time and the bandwidth to give on a national level, and have really been involved with them ever since. And 2 years back, there was a vacancy as the president or the chairman of the board, and I agreed to do that. So that's my main retirement project. It allows me to take what I've learned really throughout all the years that I've been involved with aphasia and try to focus it on a national level to help people. You know, Kitty, you and I are in the Washington, D.C. area, and we have wonderful resources here. But all across the country, those resources do not exist. There are centers, there aren't university programs, there aren't even support groups somewhere. And so it's a major goal of the NAA to match people with services and now provide services over the internet to really connect people with aphasia with each other. Because as you know, one of the most important, maybe challenging, but definitely rewarding things is to connect with other people with aphasia.
How many people in USA have aphasia?
There is another very tricky question. We know that there are at least 2 million. There may be as many as 6 million people. Add up all the different possibilities. Aphasia is caused by stroke. About a third of people who have a stroke will have aphasia. But there are people with traumatic brain injuries like you that have aphasia.
Yeah.
There are people that have a tumor on their brain and have had it removed that have aphasia and have aphasia. It's causes. And then there is this whole pretty significant category of people that have what's called primary progressive aphasia.
PPA.
A type of aphasia. It's a different type because it gets worse over time instead of better. Still, it's aphasia. You add up the numbers, the published numbers are all over the place. So, but we know there are at least 2 million people with aphasia. That's a lot of people.
What about younger aphasia? Does any idea how many?
Oh, I don't have numbers about that. But what I do know is there is I guess I'll call it a trend at strokes are happening in young people. Strokes in young people now than there ever were before. Again, if 1/3 of those have aphasia, then there is more aphasia in young people. And so a lot of times people think of stroke, and if they know what aphasia is, think of aphasia happening only to old people. It's not true. There's a whole category of younger people who are living with aphasia, and it's pretty significant.
What do you think about younger aphasia? Senior is, oh, I did that. I do working, check. My son and daughter, check. My married, check. Just in retirement, oh, I should be 20 years. I should do more time to the family, to friends. But younger aphasia, so much long time to 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. What about you?
Yeah, you're so correct, Kitty. Living and dealing with aphasia is never easy, no matter how old you are. But you literally put your finger on it. When it happens to someone who's 70, let's just use that number. Yes, you might be married. You've had your children. You have grandchildren. You've had a career. Dealing with the aphasia is still a very significant change in life, but it's much different when it happens to someone who has all of those life goals ahead of them. So you're looking to develop new friendships, to maybe have some kind of employment or work, to find someone where there's mutual love, have children, have a relationship. And so there are extra needs, extra challenges. And I will go back to another piece of research done in Australia by Linda Worrell about what people with aphasia want.
Yeah.
And I think in young people, it's true of all people, but in young people with aphasia, it is to give back to the community, to be contributing to the community. No one wants to be dependent on others. You want to be independent. Then you want to be able to give back in whatever way that is.
Yeah.
Whether through a job or a volunteer job or being on the internet, being an advocate, being an educator, doing something to give back to the world. And that is, I think, particularly applies to young people with aphasia, as well as finding this interconnection, which I'll give you a plug, you're doing with young people with aphasia, getting them together. You have different needs than people who are experiencing aphasia in a later phase of their life. So it's a huge service and a huge need to get young people with aphasia together and share your problems and your needs and your solutions and successes.
Do younger aphasia, do they do back to work?
Well, that's a good question. There's different levels of going back to work. Is going back to work in exactly the way you were working prior to your incident, whatever it was. And the numbers of people who are able to do that is sadly pretty small.
Yeah.
There's another level of finding a new and different kind of work, which a certain amount of people do. It may not be the work that they did before. It might be something that is less dependent on language. And if it's satisfying, that's great. There's also, we can't overlook the fact that many young people with aphasia go on Social Security disability insurance that are volunteering, living a life, finding someone to marry and have a partner.
Yeah.
You see through your contacts that how many people find love and marriage and children and live a very good life, even if they're not working. So it isn't always the top goal to go back to work.
What is your superpower?
My superpower. Wow. I'm going to say this. My superpower is believing so hard in something that it actually happens.
Oh.
That. Thanks, Kitty.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. Thanks.
Bye.